Good morning. This is the stand-up for Friday, September 7th, 2018. Um, so yesterday didn't go quite as planned. Um, so I had two goals, right? So the first was to um, you know look into the different nodes and see if you can have um, the different nodes for the interplanetary file system, right? And it's how I believe the distributed web is going to work in the future. So at least in the next couple of years here, I think that's the direction that things are going to go, and so that's the tech that I'm going to be um, working off of. And right now, when a node adds to one of the gateway servers, and it lets all the other nodes know, okay, hey, we exist in the network, right? And then you're able to see all the files, right? So when I was thinking on it, it's like, okay, initially it's like, all right, well, I want some files hidden, right? I don't want people to be able to see them. And but as I was kind of going through exploring that path and how to hide it and whatnot, I realized that the way the distributed web works is very different than the normal web, right? So in the normal web, you were able to hide files by having very unique URLs, right? And you have the client then know about those links, and then they would connect to the central server, and then the file would come back, right? But now, if every node is also a server, then they all know about the links, right? So you make a request, and then everyone knows about it. So that methodology really doesn't work, right? So the only thing that I can think of, if everyone knows about the file and you still want to keep it hidden, you're going to have to go with encryption techniques. Um, so that's kind of, that's that, right? Um, and So that was the first goal, right? And the second goal yesterday was setting up the gateway server, right? And so that establishes different networks. So each kind of gateway, nodes connect, and then it lets all the nodes. It kind of like accumulates a list or a collection of nodes, right? And so if a node wants to join a server, it's like, hey, let me join, and you're just like, okay. Um, and then they become part of the group and then or the network, and then everyone knows that this new server joined or the new node joined. um, I didn't get to that after I realized that I had to go with the encryption technique. I went back and kind of brainstormed the rest of the afternoon, um, and I came up with an interesting path forward. What I think you should be able to do and to move forward is really build small components of the website, right? And and then kind of branch out there. And the, so for the new economy tech, it's going to consist of one, a gateway server, right? So all the nodes want any node that wants to join the new economy, they can talk to the server, and the server is a gateway. So it could deny um, nodes, or it could also kick them out later. But that's how I want it set up, right? Um, at least I hope it can kick them out later. I'm not sure, right? I know that we should be able to deny the nodes from joining the list, but can we remove them later? That's a question mark. But the next thing is the nodes. I really want each individual node to have um, a certain basic standard. And it would be cool if each node uh, has is kind of like a website, right? And maybe it's just a really simple website, right? But what I'm envisioning is that each node is for an individual person, and it could be like as simple as their blog or email or link to all of it, or their social networking, whatever. But the point is when a node joins, it has a very basic template, and there's going to be like a front end to it where other people could potentially go and take a look at, and it's like, hey, this is what's going on this node, right? And then there's going to be the like the admin side where they can go in and have it be similar to WordPress, where it's a content management system. And through there, what I think would be really cool is if they could go and search through a list of plugins, and then grab the plugins, and the plugins would have their own versions and settings, and amongst those versions would be different data versions, or even the such as like what time the data was pulled, and what have you. And so I think the entire web could just work off of something as simple as having these plugins. Um, everyone can go and grab the plugin, and then have versions assigned to it, and then have the settings assigned. And when that happens, then you have a website. It would be just super simple, right? And you don't even need all the files, right? So if there was a file that was super redundant in the network, you don't need to copy that. You would just have a pointer to it, right? So when you're grabbing these nodes, it could just be something as simple as like a basic setting file that you would just set up, and it would just go and have a bunch of pointers, some pointers pointing to the data, some pointers pointing to the software that's running it, and yeah, so you're just going to have the admin side would be a list of your plugins, right? And so the web would just consist of a bunch of plugins. Well, and the data files, right? Yeah, you're going to need that. So that would be the third item, right? So you'd have the plugins. So one, you would have the gateway, right? So if you want to establish a certain network, you're going to check the nodes to make sure that they follow whatever standard is set. And then two, you're going to have all the individual nodes. And then three, you're going to have a bunch of plugins. And the plugins, they're going to have the different front ends and back ends, or, well, this is what it could potentially be, right? So it could potentially have front ends and back end settings, and then of the back end settings, you could have settings that specifically relate to the data, and yeah, and plugins could be it could grow in complexity, right? Where you have smaller plugins that get grouped together with certain settings, and now they function as one, right? And that could just be like a larger plugin for an app then. So if you're letting everything be very uh, customizable, or is that a word? I'm not sure, but you can customize everything, right? And you give flexibility then to all the users. I'm seeing that could really be the path forward. And so when the marketplace is created, it's not one place, right? It could be a bunch of these different nodes and everyone goes to the different portals and it looks a little different, right? And so that's how you could have the front end consists of um, you could have thousands of front ends where all the back end data could be pointing to like the same thing. So um, yeah, I'm thinking that's the way we're going to move forward. So what do I want to work on today? Well, when I was thinking about it, if we're going to move forward with each node being kind of a content manager, and then consisting of a list of plugins with their versions and settings, well then really what I need to be working on is coming up with idea for different plugins and come up with kind of a standard list, right? Like what do all websites use? What are some of the basic building blocks, that are used on all the websites? And then, how do we make those building blocks customize a little bit so that they can be implemented on each of the different websites? And so I was going to do some research and look over just the web in general and see, what are the major websites that are out there, and kind of look at those websites and break down their core components and see how those core components kind of overlap into different plugins and kind of plan out a plan of attack, I guess, of making the different plugins. And I think one way to really push the economy forward would just be by coming up with like some kind of mock versions of simple websites that are already out there, right? So maybe like a social media site, whether it would be LinkedIn or Facebook or what have you, something similar to that, right? Where it's a social media site or something like a news site or a blog site or what have you. Really just go and study, what are the major sites of the web, and then how can they be implemented with Web 3.0, and then what overlapping plugins would need to be created for that, right? And what kind of customizing features would be needed for that, and then it would give me a place to start, right? So because there's so much work ahead, I'm just not really sure where to start. So and I wanna build value the entire process, right? And break off small pieces. And so I think this is a good way of building value by building these little plugins, one plugin at a time, change it, and then have it so that they can all work together. And so that way, the individual developers or developing teams can just work on these little plugins. And then you can bring it together as a group. And by bringing all the plugins together as a group, um, it then creates the site. And so that's kind of the vision. Uh, we'll see how it progresses moving forward. But yeah, today I was going to do the research on the different websites and kind of take a look at the different plugins that are needed. And then, still in the back burner, it's setting up the gateway server. So anyways, thanks for checking in, and you all have a great rest of your day.